Welcome to the No Rain, No Rainbows podcast. This is a show about pushing through obstacles and hard times in order to live a happy and fulfilled life. I'm your host, Ted Phaeton, and it's a pleasure to have you joining us. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Let's grow. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the No Rain, No Rainbows podcast. As always, it's a pleasure to have you. And a big shout out to my executive producer, Andre Suttles, Subtle Solution Media, helping to make this podcast possible. We have a great show in store for you guys. I can't wait for you to hear from our guest today, Jordan Mendoza on the podcast. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing good, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing very, very well. And we've had a few good conversations, and I'm excited to have the No Rain, No Rainbows audience listening in on this one. Before we hop into some subject matter, learn more about you, your expertise, and everything that you're doing and working on, I'd love for folks to first get introduced to you, man. So why not let them know who you are and what it is you do?
Sure, man. So, yeah, hey, first off, thank you so much for having me. Anytime I can come on and hopefully add value to an audience, I'm appreciative of that. So I appreciate it, Ted. So my name's Jordan Mendoza. Reside in the Atlanta area. Grew up in the Pacific Northwest. Lived out there for 19 years. So big local sports fan for those teams like the Trailblazers and Seahawks were the sports team. But my wife and I have 5 kids, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? It's a lot for most people, but man, all of them are a blessing. They're all different personalities. They range from 6 months to 16 years old. So shout out to my wife, who is a real MVP here. I'm here doing this, and she's doing all the hard stuff, right? So, but yeah, so I'm actually leaving a 15-year career in property management on this Friday, depending on when your listeners are going to hear this episode. I'll probably already be in the new role. And so the reason I'm leaving, though, is I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot in 15 years, and I feel like everything has led to this point, has prepared me to take this new leap.
Yeah. And I love that. And also a podcast host, blaze your own trail.
Absolutely.
Definitely want to make sure our listeners know about that. But you mentioned how much you've learned, and after 15 years in the career, you're ready to step away. A lot of our listeners, they have the side hustle, right? And this is, I guess, the combination to the lock or the puzzle, the last piece of the puzzle so many folks are trying to put together is, how do I make my side thing my main thing? How do I convert this project that I'm working on? How do I make that sustainable and then make that my livelihood so I can walk away from my 9 to 5? What does that look like?
Man, so I would love to just kind of give a little origin story. I think it's important that people understand where I came from before they understand how, what I do and what I'm all about, right? So,
Yeah.
I grew up, my mom was actually born with one lung. And this was back in 1958. And when that happened in 1958, it was basically like, hey, listen, probably won't live to be 18, and definitely won't be able to have any kids. Those were kind of like the cards that she was dealt. But man, she did a lot with that. She did pretty well up through high school. Didn't have to even have oxygen or anything all through high school. And shortly after, had my older brother and then had me, and ended up having 5 boys and living to 54 years old. And in her life, man, she was so powerful, because you talk about side hustles. She couldn't work. So she was the side hustle queen. She would go to the dog races and bet and try to earn money for our family. We had food stamps and welfare, and she would play bingo to try to win money. She would do whatever she could to try to put food on the table for us, and so I think I learned a lot of that hustle from her, but also she just showed us love. No matter what we did, she instilled that confidence in us that, hey, it's all good, just keep going, keep trying out there. And so I learned a lot from her, man. A lot of lessons that have really instilled a lot of me in how I want to live my life, and in those values were so important. And also, I didn't meet my dad till I was 12, and so that in itself for a lot of people could be either very detrimental, or you can look through a different lens. And so, meeting him, of course, there was all that weirdness. I flew by myself from Portland to DC when I was 12 years old, met my dad and my stepmom, and he had a new family. And And so that was, it was an interesting experience to meet him, but he's from the Philippines, and, learning about that culture and learning where he grew up, in the rice paddies and really poor, and, had a caribou that he would help, till those rice paddies. And then, just his journey, eventually making it, to the States, working for a landscaping company, and now he's had his business over 40 years, wow. So his journey is even inspiring, So I took a lot of the hard work, from him, and then, from my mom, the kindness, the empathy, but also that hustle and love for sports, So I kind of took those things from them, and that's really is what shaped who I am. But, living with her, I mean, she could have died several times when I was younger, a lot of those, hospital visits. And then I think about my life, and I've had 3 very pivotal moments that we can talk about here in a minute, where, really I could have died in any of those events, and I still don't feel like I've faced adversity yet, just knowing what my mom went through, man. So that gives me a really powerful perspective.
Yeah. And that perspective, I mean, I wrote down, the origin of the hustle. A lot of times we see this example emulated in front of us, and that's what kind of gives us that boost, or that fire under our butts to kind of go that extra mile. And it really puts us on a different trajectory through life. I'd be interested in knowing how that trajectory helped you take on some of the challenges you've experienced in your life. What are some of the things that, like, when it came up, because of the examples that were set ahead of you, you actually had the tools to take on that challenge?
Yeah, it's funny because I think, the first kind of pivotal moment where you'll hear in a second where I really shouldn't have made it if I would have been, if I wasn't allergic to bees, right? So I'll give you that little teaser there. But 4th grade picnic, it's a place called Pier Park in North Portland, Oregon. I don't know why we had a picnic at the end of 4th grade, but I liked it, right? It was great. Normally it's like you finish 5th grade, you get a picnic, but we had one anyways. And we were playing, there was like baseball, tetherball. You imagine the games, and it's all over the park. And I was up to bat. I got up. I swung the bat. I did one of those kind of cartoon where I spin around. The bat flew away from me. It landed under a big Douglas fir tree. And Ted, when I went to grab the bat and stood up, there was a beehive on my head.
Oh.
So literally, I'm being stung. I'm running. Kids are running away from me. Teachers are running away. And finally, I ran over to where they had the picnic tables, and some of the teachers had big coolers there for the drinks, and they started dumping them on and just pulling the bees off me. And so, man, if I was allergic to bees, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. I got stung 53 times.
Wow.
I mean, so it was crazy. And it's funny because I remember after that, I thought I was like the bee man, because I would just go grab bees and let them walk on me, and they wouldn't sting me. And then a couple weeks later, I got stung by a yellow jacket, and I was like, okay, I'm not the bee man anymore. Yeah, I'm definitely not the bee man, So that was kind of pivotal moment, number 1. But I think getting through that was my mom. Like, I've seen, she's had one lung, oxygen, and getting sick and going. It was like, you know what? If she got through that, right, I can get through this, And then, a handful of years later, at 12, we moved probably 14 times from birth to 14. Right, throw another wrench in the mix, right? I don't know why. Probably we were poor, so maybe got booted out of this place and went to another. I don't know the situation, but during that time, we moved when I was 12 to a couple towns down, and I had to take 2 public buses to get to my middle school. And I begged my mom. I was like, Mom, like, I've gone to school. Even though we moved several times before that, we always stayed in the same school district, so it was just like different neighborhoods and stuff. And I wanted to go to that school, so she did the bus route with me like a good mom, right? Rode with me, and when the second stop was a 7-Eleven, and I would stop in there. She introduced me to the lady, and the lady knew me and met her, and I'd play Mortal Kombat 2 there every day while I was waiting on the bus, And so one day I was on my route, going to the 7-Eleven. I'm playing Mortal Kombat 2, and the little bells chime, you can hear when someone walks in. And I'm just playing the game, and I hear a male voice yell, "Hey, Daniel." And I didn't stop. I'm playing. I'm not Daniel, and all of a sudden I feel my body gets lifted. I get shoved in the Terminator 2 pinball machine that had the gun as the trigger to launch the pinballs, and I'm getting assaulted, punched by a male officer, thrown on the ground, handcuffed. The lady at the store is yelling at them saying, he's not Daniel, he's Jordan. I know his mom. And they're like cussing at her. They handcuff me, throw me in the back of a cop car. I'm 12. And I was like crying. I'm like, I'm not Daniel. And I wasn't the greatest student. I'll be completely honest with that. But I knew I did my homework that night before. And I said to the officer, I said, listen, my name is Jordan Mendoza. My homework is in my pocket of my London Fog jacket. I know it's in there. And when I tell you, brother, he reached his hand in there. He pulled that homework out. It said Jordan Mendoza, and he looked like he saw a dang ghost because he knew he screwed up. And man, it could have been a long, blown out process. But even at 12, I had the self awareness to know I didn't want something to drag on. I knew they didn't need jobs because the way that they acted, and so they both ended up getting fired. And even my mom was like, "Man, we can get a bunch of money from this and things like that." And I was like, "Listen, that's not what I want to do. I don't hate police officers. I know that those people were bad."
Yeah.
And at 12, I knew that. And today, I mean, as we've seen in the media, things haven't changed. They thought I was a Hispanic runaway. I'm not even Hispanic. My father's from the Philippines. My mom's Irish and Native American. So I am mixed enough to look like several different, races, I'm sure. But they made a mistake, right? And again, I think back to that and I'm like, man, like, what if I would have fought back? Like, what if I would have, something would have triggered my fight or flight and I would have gotten killed? So there's all these things. Those are two times when, frankly, I could have not been here to tell this story. And then the next one happened at 19 when I was doing door-to-door sales. We were going to open an office. We were in California. We were going to open an office in New Jersey. We had a 3-car caravan. We kind of took the scenic route. We wanted to go to Salt Lake City and Vegas. And, we were young, so we wanted to see all these different cities and visit these other satellite offices. And we were on our journey, and we were in Wyoming. And I had fallen asleep. We're in a Chevy King Cab truck, one of the ones that has the seats in the back that sit kind of sideways. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't face forward, I was face sideways. I fell asleep. Well, the driver fell asleep at the wheel. And when he woke up, he hit the gas instead of the brake. So we slid north of 70 and flipped several times. Oh, wow. And I woke up while we were sliding. I remember just yelling like, holy crap. And then we flip, and boom, the truck lands. And so I got out, didn't realize that I was even hurt, the adrenaline. The other people got out, but the driver, he was not in the truck anymore. He literally got ejected, Ted, 20 yards from where the truck landed.
Wow.
And our only saving grace is there was 2 off-duty EMTs. They just came from a conference, and they happened to be passing like right after it happened. And so they called the ambulance. Our buddy got life flighted to Casper. I got, actually I had 2 cuts on my legs, one 12 inches long, a fist deep on my right leg, and then an 8-inch cut on my left. I had to have 52 staples, so I had to get rushed in for surgery. And but the craziest part is my buddy Jeremy made a full recovery. 2 beautiful children today. I made a full recovery, and they told me I might not be able to walk. I can run and jump and probably do a flip if I train for it a few weeks. You know what I'm saying? So, it's just, it's crazy to have these moments. And it just, really over the last couple of years, I've realized why I'm here, right? What my passion and my purpose really are. And so we'll get to talk about that here in a second.
Yeah, I love that too. And you said you were stung 53 times?
53
and 52 stitches. I don't know, 52 or 53. I mean, you might want to play those lottery numbers or something. The jackpot's pretty high right now.
Right, exactly.
But 4th grade, 12 years old, 19 years old, those significant moments, how have those shaped you moving forward into your 20s and through business or whatnot? Because, I mean, it's being able to tell those stories so vividly, they have a place, right? And they've 100%. Had an impact on your life. I'd be interested to know, like, how those, and you shared some of the lessons with the officers at 12, but how have those experiences impacted your life moving forward?
Man, they've given me a great perspective, right? They've really, I think after each one, I realized that I was here for some other reason that I knew, right? Like like the fact that we woke up today tells us that there's still work to be done, right? But just having those experiences in, potentially near death experience, it really gives you a great awareness. I really truly believe adversity gives you strength. It doesn't make you weaker. It actually gives you strength, and it enables you to see through a lens that other people that haven't experienced it can't even see through. And I also believe it actually heightens your emotional intelligence because you become so self-aware, and you also become able to manage your emotions better, which enables you to create better relationships and show up confidently in a social setting. So I really think there's adversity gives you an advantage.
So you mentioned about adversity and the fact that how that can give strength, but it's interesting you say that also in the same breath you say you feel like you haven't really faced adversity left.
Mm-hmm.
So there's
Yep.
also this awareness, right? That
Yep.
hey, there's still more challenges to come. And
100%.
I always ask this question whenever I get the opportunity to on the podcast. You've shared the life-changing moments along the way. But with No Rain, No Rainbows, you're either in the storm, just got out of the storm, or you're on your way into a storm. Like that's just how life works.
Yeah.
What gives you confidence for any storm that's soon to come your way?
I think it's just knowing what I've already seen, knowing what I've seen, knowing what I've experienced. I mean, because there's countless stories that I can tell where it's just like, what the heck? Like, how did how did you make it? I mean, I like when our my wife and I, when we met, this is back in 2003. She told me she wouldn't be able to have any kids, and it was because of things that happened, when she was younger. And so I was like, man, okay, and and so we weren't very protected. We weren't very protected. We were just having fun, and all of a sudden she got pregnant, and I was like, wait a second, what about all this? Aren't able to have kids stuff, And she's like, that's what the doctors told me, and so we actually started, like, okay, well, I mean, we're gonna have this baby. Like, it started to become real, and then she had a miscarriage, and man, what and I think about that a lot, especially each time we have one, you think about the one that we don't, right? And so we started recently telling our kids about that one, and man, that's been powerful for them to ask questions and to know that there was life there, which is, but so there's those experiences too, that those things don't always come to the forefront. We don't always talk about those very hard things that we experience, but what I've learned is the more that I can be vulnerable, there's a chance that I can reach one person that may have experienced that same thing, and it might inspire them to tell their story. And that's been my biggest unlock, because really over the last 21 months, I feel like 2019 I did a lot of planting, did a lot of seed planting, and 2020 was a ton of cultivating relationships, building relationships, and I've seen the fruits of the harvest are starting to arrive in 2021, but the work was put in, the foundations and those tracks were set. But a lot of it honestly came from when I started sharing my mom's story, because I started realizing if I don't share all of her goodness, then I'm diminishing her legacy. Like, people need to know how she was and who she was, and how she inspired me to be the person that I am. Yeah. And man, that was a big unlock, because I was so sad from losing my best friend that I would talk to twice and 3 times a day, that I wouldn't talk about her. And then, man, somebody encouraged me. They said, you need to tell that story. You need to share that. And once I started doing that, it was like, wow, it freed a lot of things. It freed a lot of things up for me.
Yeah. What was that healing process like? Was it, I mean, it definitely, you mentioned how slow going it was, but
it was hard, man.
Yeah.
It was one of those things. Like, I remember the day I got the call from my brother, and it was quick, man. Like, she literally called me on the phone in November, and was like, hey, I fell, ambulance is coming. I'm going to be fine, but I'll call you when they tell me what's going on. Mm-hmm. And that's the last time I heard her voice, because she went basically kind of like coma state. What had happened is she was on oxygen. She was, overweight, because couldn't really work out. And so 54 years of her lungs and her heart and her kidney, everything was having to overcompensate because of the one lung. And she got pneumonia, and then everything just started to shut down. So, March rolls around, she passes away in March. So November to March, I was flying out to Oregon and really taking responsibility. I'm the second oldest, but because I'm the guy that's been in this, the business world, and, I don't know how I got that default. So that was a lot of, heaviness, man. It was a lot of, talking to the doctors and doing all these things. And then when she passes, now I'm kind of I'm not even a lawyer, but I'm dealing with the real estate stuff from the Native American land that we were going to inherit because so it's all these responsibilities, man. And I remember like 6 months passing by and me not remembering, going through that. And when I look back, it was just foggy. And during that time, I was managing the largest asset for the company, 558 units. It was performing well. And of course, my performance started to decline. I didn't realize it, but it was happening. And I got demoted. And I got demoted to a smaller community. And although I don't really appreciate the way that it went down, I don't feel like there was enough empathy there for my liking, but I'm an empathetic person. It still was great that it happened, and it needed to happen. It needed to be part of my journey because I met some incredible people and built some great relationships, and also a role came open in training and development that brought us to DC for 5 years, and we can talk about what that role looked like. But so I'm a big believer that everything happens for a reason. I'm the path that I've endured, the way that I've gotten to this point it's the way it was supposed to be. It's my journey.
Yeah.
And the more I think we can appreciate the process that's gotten us there. When we're in it, it's difficult, but as we say, hindsight is 20/20. So when you get to kind of look back and see, wow, definitely don't want to do that again. That's super helpful for the rest of our journey, but it's a lifelong thing.
Yeah. We learn every single day, and it's another at bat every time we wake up. And a lot of people talk about the concept of work-life balance, and you kind of touched on it a little bit when you were dealing with everything with your mom and the performance at work kind of plateauing a little bit and getting demoted. And it's almost as though people feel as though they need to be separated, or you can't have one without the other. But I mean, I'm under the belief personally that our adversities in life can actually provide us with the fortitude to handle the challenges in business, how one can in fact serve the other. Have you found that to be true with your personal experiences? You mentioned taking on a new role and things happening for a reason. Have you found that those challenges and really those curveballs through life ended up guiding you in the direction you needed to be for your business as well?
Yeah, I mean, everything led me to that role. I mean, I think about it from 12 years old, basically through my early 20s, every summer I would get on flights across the country. Well, when I got this new corporate role, twice a month I'm doing flights across the country, and I'm teaching and I'm training, right? But I had to learn the teaching and the training, doing all the door-to-door sales jobs and building teams that way, which helped set me up to be able to teach and train people in the other jobs does that make sense? And so everything on the path had its purpose. I've been talking to people face to face since I was, probably 6, because we didn't have money. I'd literally go door to door, and in Oregon, you get 5 cents for cans. I would go try to collect cans and go take them in to buy candy, So, I've been working on that craft for a long time, and I think when you can understand how powerful communication is and being able to read and relate, body language, nonverbal communication, all of those things, man, they have added value to every single job I have, and they'll continue adding value to everything I do in life. Right. Yeah. And so, so I look at the journey and I'm like, everything is kind of weaved in with itself,
Yeah. So talk about the role in terms of how you've enjoyed it. Is this the role you were in for 12 years?
Yeah, 8 years. I'm leaving. I've been in it. October was 8 years in this role. So I get this role, and the job description, learning and development manager, and it's like, you're gonna create content, and you're gonna teach all of the different roles from leasing professionals, assistants, community managers, regionals, kind of all the roles, on-site and corporate. And I was like, wow, this is cool. I'm just going to be teaching classes all day. Every day I'll have my calendar filled, and I'll be teaching on these different subjects. And for a little bit, that was it, Ted. It was that. So, I got good at learning the content, and I can't look at something and then go talk. I can't do that. So I literally learn it. I memorize the content, but then I just put my own spin on it. So it's more organic. To me, that's the best way. I can't read this thing and be like, so do.
Yeah.
That's just not my style. I'm a freestyler, right? It's not my style. So So I would do that, and I got really good at it. And then all of a sudden, the video stuff started coming in, like 2013. Video was getting more prominent, and so it was like, man, now we like bought a green screen, and we're trying to like create this video content, and it's terrible. Like half the stuff, it looks like I'm teleporting in. I've got like a suit on, and all of a sudden I just appear like a genie. So it's funny to look back at that process now, because now I have clients that I do video editing for, and it's good, and it's more professional, and there's captions. But I used to be terrible at that, and I was like, I don't know how they're allowing me to put this on our learning management system. I think people are just like it because it's goofy and I'm just teleporting in. But again, I had to learn how to get better at that, and so those trials helped me with confidence, because I didn't know I was going to eventually teach a 6-month leadership program, right? And so as things started changing, social media, our content would change. We went from a lot of in-person training, and then we switched to like flipped classroom style, where they would learn a video module before they got to class, then they would come, and then it flipped on its head, and it became, with COVID happened, like now it's all virtual, right? So I mean, there's been so many different things that have happened in 8 years. It's incredible to look back at that part of the journey. But 2016, we did a test pilot for a leadership program in Dallas, and we went every month for 6 months. We all graduated, and then we all needed on our team to become certified in Myers-Briggs. So, we get flown to Dallas, and 2 other people were in Texas, so they drove, I think. But I got flown to Dallas, and I had to, it was 4 days. Okay, just a refresher here. Not a great student, Don't like tests. Don't like, studying. It literally turns me into a different person, I just don't enjoy that.
But you do your homework.
But I do, yeah, 100%. I'm flagging everything and highlighting like crazy, yep. So I go to this thing, and I'm nervous because, I don't want to be the guy that doesn't get this thing and that doesn't get to teach this. Like, literally, we were teaching, like, the month after. So, like, man, when I tell you I was up late, I was page flagging stuff, like highlighting, and then when I passed, like, that was like I won the lottery. You know what I'm saying? Because but I didn't want to be that guy. And then, so and then I was like, man, like, I actually just got a lifetime certification. Like, this is actually awesome, So I was like, how do I use this outside of work? So I started telling people that I was certified, and I tried to get clients, and I got a client. It was actually my church, and I went and taught 35 people on staff, put them through an MBTI workshop, and it was my first client. And I was like, man, I was fired up, I was like, I got to do this. People learned, they enjoyed it, and then that passion kind of just fizzled out. It was like, how it is. Like, we start something and we're just like gung ho, and then all of a sudden we kind of lose the passion for it. So, I had enjoyed teaching the leadership program because of the transformation. That's truly, man, like, that's so powerful when you can take somebody that really doesn't know what they're getting into. Maybe their boss was like, hey, you should sign up for this thing. I think you're ready for the next level. And they're like, cool. And all of a sudden they're getting put through a personality assessment and finding out like how they're wired. I mean, that's kind of trippy, right? Like, to get kind of tossed into that. So I literally take these strangers, these people, maybe I've interacted with them, maybe I haven't. It rotated from DC to Atlanta, so it's 2 different markets, and we put them through MBTI, so they get that foundation of how they're wired. They take that deep introspective look at themselves, which is phenomenal to be able to do that. And then we jump into topics like strengths-based leadership. That's why I use that reference for your Patreon audience. We talk about emotional intelligence. We dive into conflict resolution. We dive into how to manage a high-performing team, change management, right? All of these amazing topics. And at the end of it, oh, and by the way, Ted, I'm coaching each of them every month for this 6 months. So they get one-on-one coaching from me.
Nice.
Where I get to find out what their goals are. And so I'm literally helping them along this journey for 6 months. And at the end of it, they do a business challenge in front of, senior leadership. They work in teams, and so they get that team environment we talked about with sports earlier. And then they have to do their own personal leadership philosophy, where they write kind of their mission statement of who they are and how they want to show up to the world. And man, like, when we're at that graduation and I have people, adults, in tears and saying, this really changed my life, Like, man, there's no bigger, like, feeling that you can get from somebody. And so that really, honestly, Ted, gave me the confidence to know that I can make an impact in people's lives outside of the corporate environment.
Yeah.
Like, if I can do it in, why can't I do it out? Why can't I do it, with clients that I meet that I can transform? Why can't I do that then? And so I started asking myself that question, like, why can't I do that? Right? I can help people outside of this. So
Yeah. And it's amazing because you had the experience, you saw the proof in the pudding, really. It's the connection that happened where you start thinking to yourself, okay, maybe I can do this. Maybe this is something
yeah,
that's sustainable on its own. And why not do it? Why not go out and just go for broke, bet on yourself? Because hey, you already have a company that's been betting on you for years. You have a
100%.
company that's been investing on you for years. So if they're going to invest in you, why not invest in yourself? Coming towards our time here with the podcast, I love always asking, what are the rainbows moving forward? And I think that's a perfect transition into where we are right now with you kind of having that eureka moment, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I could do this for myself. And this kind of comes full circle with how we started of you getting ready for that transition. What does that transition look like? And what excites you the most? What's the countdown? 4 days away. Um, what does that, what excites you the most about that step?
Man, I think the biggest thing is the time freedom, the time freedom that I'm going to have to spend more time with my family, to invest in things that they're doing, like, because, as an entrepreneur, one of the beautiful things is you get to write your schedule, right? So, I remember, I was telling my wife, I was like, man, like, so next week I'm got to get up. Yeah, and I'm like, wait a minute. My first day, I'm gonna do what I want. I'm gonna get up late, like, I'm gonna do that and give myself, hey, this is the first day of it. And then I'm like, no, that's not me. I'm definitely getting up early, And so I'm like having this conversation because I know me, and I'm gonna go in and hit the ground running, and make sure my calendar is full. That like I love creating momentum because I know that will create the consistency that I need to get the results that I need, right? And so that's what I'm excited about, man. Is just diving in, having that time freedom, though, of, like, I don't have to commute anywhere. Like, I already have clients that are around the country, and so being able to do that remotely is nice, right? It's nice that the world is now pretty much looking at it, like a means of communication for good, right? It's not like a thing that was just came here and is disappearing. There's going to be more of it, and so to be able to understand that there's so much power in building these relationships virtually, and eventually when things do get to whatever the new normal ends up being, man, those in-person relationships are going to be even more powerful, right? If you're able to kind of create those connections like this, man, that first time you get to see someone, when I first get to meet you and give you that big hug and be like, bro, man, it's been great, like, finally get to see each other, like, that type of stuff is what I'm looking forward to as well down the road.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Last question is, what would you say to somebody that's currently in limbo, where, they have the full-time job and they have the side gig, they have that realization that, ooh, maybe I can do this, maybe I have what it takes, but they just don't know how to maybe put that process, that infrastructure in place. What would you tell them?
I would tell them to do exactly what I did, and that is be a practitioner while you're doing the full-time thing, because that's really going to test your bandwidth. Because listen, I had a lot of late nights. I interviewed 80 people last year on the podcast, and I remember people, they're like, you do Saturdays at 7? I'm like, Sundays at like 6:30. Like, yes, I do, because this is important to me. I'm investing the time here. Like, I was able to scale my business and my podcast during a pandemic, right? But what I realized is that there's people that I normally wouldn't be able to access that I can probably access now because they're at home too. They've got kids running around. I got kids roller skating upstairs and being crazy. Like, we're all in this together. And the more that we can realize that we're all human beings, we're all in this together, we all, are going through the same things, man, it makes things a lot easier.
Yeah, no, that's amazing insight. And I'm I'm in my home office, right? You're at home. We're doing this from the comfort of our own home, recording an episode that will live through time and space. And the folks listening to this can hear our voices and hear your story and build that connection. That's what's amazing about this platform. Speaking of connection, I definitely want to make sure that our listeners and our viewers on YouTube have an ability to connect with you, reach out to you, and continue to follow you on your journey and use some of your skills if it benefits them. So how can they reach out and find some of your links?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you can reach me on LinkedIn, Jordan Mendoza. Look me up there. Active on that platform. Instagram at Jordan J Mendoza. Same as Twitter. TikTok at Blaze Your Own Trail. Don't roast me. I haven't posted a lot of content. I'm still learning, guys. I don't know all the platforms, right? We all are the new guys somewhere, right? But yeah, look me up on social. My podcast is called the Blaze Your Own Trail podcast. You'll be hearing Ted's episode here soon on that show, and man, that's been such a blessing in my life. That show also gave me confidence to know that I can do it because I was doing the full-time job plus the podcast. I'm the editor, the marketer, the everything plus the consulting business. So 2020 I just kind of proved that I can do it. And that really gave me the confidence. So for those of you that are in limbo or you're thinking about it, just start putting in that work. Start doing things behind the scenes. Start building your brand because your brand is going to really help give other people a different side of you. And when you go and you're just showing up as your authentic self everywhere, no matter what platform it's on, whether it's just your voice on the new amazing platform of Clubhouse, or you're on video on a live stream, or you're on Instagram, just be you, right? Because there's only one you. So if you can do that and start showing up and putting in that work behind the scenes, you will teach yourself that you are capable of doing it.
Yeah.
But you can't have any growth without reps, and that should preach to a lot of us. I even tell that to myself when it comes to like working out, so I need to put in more reps. But listen, we're all on this journey together. We're all figuring life out. I'm definitely, there are a lot of people say they're experts, but I don't know it all, so I'm still a novice, just trying to figure it out. So
yeah. Well, that's where my excitement comes in. It's just I wake up and there's so much to learn, and I can't wait to kind of find out what I don't know, because we don't know what we don't know. And every day is an opportunity to find something else out. Jordan, man, I appreciate you taking the time to be on the podcast, sharing your story and sharing your expertise and some of your insights with our audience.
Hey, thanks so much, man.
Absolutely. And to the audience, thank you so much for rocking with us throughout this episode. Thank you for making it to the end. Of course, as always, I like to recap some of the gems and some of the points that were dropped along the episode. The origin of the hustle. Again, sometimes we emulate what we see, and Jordan had that example in his mother. He also had the example in his father, and the three significant moments of his life that could have changed everything. And the way he showed up then, how he continued to show up in the future. First in the 4th grade with the bees, stung 53 times. I've been stung like 4 or 5 times in one sitting. That was not fun. I can only imagine 53. But then
I think after 10, it gets easy. It's just like, okay, now I'm numb.
Yeah. Yeah. Now it's just like, oh, okay, just stop. But I mean, but the fact of the matter is, there are a few people that can say they've had an experience like that, right? And even at 12 years old, it's interesting that happened to you, Jordan, because a fear of mine for the longest time has been fitting the description of somebody and being wrongfully accused, and you actually going through that and also having the grace afterwards. It speaks volumes of the maturity you had at age 12, and then at 19 going through the near-death experience, and then even further looking forward towards how adversity gives you strength. Remember those things that you go through. We talk about all the time. The rain is what's needed for the flowers to grow. I know we don't like the storms, but we love the rainbows. You can't get one without the other, as we always say. And of course, some of the things that Jordan mentioned happened to him. He needed it to happen to be part of his journey. It's all taking us to where we need to go and creating momentum and being a practitioner at what you're doing. A lot of you guys are working hard on that project. You're trying to make it bigger. You're trying to scale it up. Be a practitioner, put in the work, put in the reps, keep on pushing forward. And I promise you the fruits will show themselves in the near future. As always, guys, we appreciate you taking the time to be on the podcast with us, listening. If you enjoyed it, give us that like, rate us, let us know how we're doing. Share this with a friend if you think they would benefit from it, and hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. And of course, if you do want to support the podcast, you could hear more from Jordan on our Patreon page, where you could support for as little as $1 a month. We appreciate having you. And as we always say at the end of the episode, everybody wants the sunshine, but they don't want the rain. But you can't get the pleasure without a little pain. Let's grow.
Yes, sir.
The No Rain, No Rainbows podcast is recorded at Camaraderie, a collective workspace in Greenville, South Carolina, right off the Swamp Rabbit Trail. If you're looking for a place to grow your business, network with other professionals, and establish your own workspace, Camaraderie is the place to do so.